Watchdog of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting released a long, scathing report of WTVP's finances after the station admitted to some forms of improper spending and police got involved.
Sam Matheny went through that report and now breaks it down. Sam?
1 year ago, WTVP President and CEO Leslie Matusak took her own life. Since then, there have been several investigations to find out what happened to hundreds of thousands of dollars in grant money that was supposed to be used for the television station. This 83-page audit paints the incriminating picture of what went wrong. The Inspector General found several areas in which WTVP did not fully comply with the Corporation of Public Broadcasting requirements to receive grant money. WTVP overstated its non-federal financial support. That's the number used to determine how much community service grant money they could receive. The Inspector General found the station overstated by more than $1 million, and it resulted in the station receiving $130,000 more in federal grants than it should have. WTVP also did not adequately keep records for special fundraising events or keep separate the money for Peoria Magazine and the TV station. WTVP hosted a fundraising event in June 2023. It was marketed to also benefit 2 outside charities and include sponsor promotion for Peoria Magazine. It was found that Matusak did not give them any of the proceeds. Another event, an online auction, started in 2021. It was supposed to feature luxury items like jewelry, but the audit found jewelry was never listed for auction. Instead, the station and Matusak bought them with federal grant money for $31,000 and recorded it all in a discrete ledger that made it look proper. Some other findings: weak and ineffective controls for reporting and tracking the money coming in and going out, allocating $13,000 for illegal lobbying activities, and not posting full versions of its annual financial report or properly notifying the public of their meetings. The final portion of the audit is a letter from the current WTVP CEO Jen Gordon and the board. The station agreed with all of the findings in the audit and detailed how they're fixing these errors inherited from the previous board. You can find the full audit on our website. That's at 25newsnow.com.